Hi everyone, welcome to our September webinar training. My name is Bryce Franklin, and this month's webinar is going to be focusing on facilitating COLT conferences. Now, I know at AOT you guys covered a good bit on how to put on these COLT conferences, and I even heard that a few of the areas have already set up locations, dates, and times for these conferences, and that's really awesome. Here, we're going to cover a little bit more of the facilitation aspect of it. So, our main objectives for this webinar are that each area officer will be able to create a workshop outline for 2 objectives following the magic formula by September 30th, deliver a planned workshop to an ag class at his or her school, and record the presentation by October 13th, and evaluate the effectiveness of the workshop by reviewing the recorded presentation and engaging with state staff by October 20th. Alright, now I want you all to take a few minutes to think about your favorite teachers in school. What makes them so great? What makes them your favorite? What do they do to make their class interesting, engaging, and entertaining? Go ahead and take a few minutes to think about this, and if you need to, feel free to pause this video. As an FFA area officer, you are called upon to be a teacher for our members. You cannot truly be an effective teacher without training and practice. In this monthly webinar, you will practice writing an effective workshop using the magic formula. You will deliver your workshop to a group of FFA members at your home chapter, and you will critique your own workshop to determine what you did well and what needs a little bit of improvement. So imagine that you wanted to teach someone how to perform a common task. Now, this task could be anything from tying your shoe to making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What would that lesson look like? Write down every detail that you would need to include in that lesson. Go ahead and take a few minutes to write this down, and if you need to, like I said before, feel free to pause this video. So I can imagine it could be a little challenging to write down every single detail and every single step for the common task, no matter how simple it was. That's why National FFA has given us the magic formula. I know at AOT you guys talked a good bit about the magic formula, but here we're going to kind of go over a crash course of what it all entails. This is the FFA magic formula for presentations and speeches. And the cool thing is National FFA not only intends for you to use this for presentations and workshops, but also for speeches as well. So if you're ever in a situation where you need to give a speech, the magic formula would be a great outline for that as well. So before you get into the heart of your workshop outline, you need to get the information. From beginning to end, you should figure out how you will show that you're prepared for each person in attendance. From the presentation coordinator, now this could be the FFA advisor, the chapter advisor, or a FFA member, a chapter officer. And you should find out the time, date, place, or setting, the length of time that you have to put on this workshop, the age group and number of participants that will be attending your workshop, and the audience's expectations. What do they expect to get from your workshop? Once you have your information, you should come up with your 3 objectives. What do you want your audience to get from this workshop and take away from it? You should organize your 3 main objectives by using SMART goals. Then we're moving on to our introduction. First, we start off with a connection. How will you ensure that your audience is prepared, engaged, and ready to learn from the start? For the beginning of your presentation, think of how you can get the audience's attention immediately. Now, this can be through music, a quick little chant, or a fun get into the room activity, such as getting them to run in the room, touch all 4 walls, and sit down in their chairs as fast as they can. You also want to draw upon what the audience already knows and understands. You should also show the relevance of your presentation, why these members need to be here and hear what you're trying to say. You should also set the environment for the audience to be in the right state of mind, and you can even set up a theme to carry throughout the presentation. Next, after the connection, you have your preview. How will you create audience awareness and anticipation for the presentation? For the beginning of your presentation, think of how you're going to share the roadmap for the presentation. How are you going to show them where you're going? You should build excitement to sustain interest throughout the presentation. You should be energetic and relatable. Make sure that your members are having a good time and can have fun while participating in this workshop. Once you have your preview, we're going to move on to the body. Now, first, for each objective, you're going to have a support, point, and application, one for each objective. So we're first going to start off with support. How is the best way for your audience to understand and learn information in your point? This can be by getting the audience involved through games and interactive activities. Thinking about material in your point, brainstorm the following support strategies. Maybe you have some related personal stories that you can share to kind of give them some background information on the information you're trying to teach them in this objective. Maybe you have some fun activities that still get the members engaged, but also have some kind of connection to the meat of your workshop and what you're trying to get them to take away from it. You should take into account the audience's needs and abilities. You should show that you care. You can even list support strategies in sequential order. So you can say, well, this happens first, then next, and so on and so forth. Then you want to narrow down or modify these support strategies based on time and setting. So when you get your information, you know how much time you have allotted for your workshop and what type of setting you're going to be in, whether or not you're going to be in a large gym or a small classroom. And you can kind of work your activities and your support around the set time that you have and the setting that you're going to be in. Then you should ask yourself, how do I transition between support strategies to the point? How can I make my support connect to what my point is trying to teach? Now we're going to talk about the point. What does the audience need to know in order to accomplish the objective of this presentation? For each objective, list the important content, ideas, steps, or definitions needed by the audience. This is the meat of the presentation. Ask yourself, does the point meet the goal and objectives in my support step? You can also ask yourself, is the amount of material in your point too much or too little, considering the audience and the situation of your presentation? After you finish your point, you can move on to your application. This is where the audience will show that they can apply what they've learned now and also in the future. For each objective, think of an activity or action for the audience to apply what they've just learned. This can be putting sticky notes on objective flip charts or even doing the cool snowball activity, where they can write down on a sheet of paper one thing that they've learned throughout your workshop, ball it up, throw it across the room, have a volunteer pick up a snowball, and read one thing that someone else has learned. You can also need to take into account the time and resources available, which you will get from the project coordinator. And you also, once again, need to take into account the audience's needs and interests. Then you should ask yourself, how can you transition from this objective into the next one? Once you have a good transition, you can move on to your next objective. And after you have all three of your objectives finished, with each having a support, point, and application, you can have a good transition between your last objective and your conclusion. Once you get to your conclusion, you can begin reviewing and closing. This is where you will help the audience summarize what they've learned and leave in a useful state of mind. For the end of the presentation, think of how you can review the points, how you can challenge the audience to use what they've learned. An example would be, what steps will you take to become more involved in your chapter and community? Then you can tie the presentation all together, and once you've done that, you should close with power and impact. Make sure that your audience leaves with 100% certainty, knowing that they got what they came into the workshop trying to learn. Alright everybody, that was the breakdown and crash course of the magic formula. Now that you have that, you can actually begin making your own workshop. Here is where you will come up with a workshop with the topic of your choice and consult with your chapter advisor to come up with the time for you to put this workshop on in front of a group of students between now and October 13th. Think back to your favorite teacher. What are some of the techniques that he or she uses in class to make their teaching more effective? Go ahead and take a few minutes to think about this, and like I said earlier, feel free to pause this video if you need to. Okay, now I want you all to write down a list of things to consider and focus on when delivering a workshop to make it more effective. You can take some of these topics some of these tools that your teachers have used in the past to make their teaching more effective and engaging and exciting, and use them in your own workshop. A good example of this would be your teacher moves around the room and engages all the students. And that could be something that you can incorporate into your very own workshops. Another one would be whether or not your teacher asks a general question to everyone or asks for volunteers and asks them questions individually. Go ahead and take a few minutes to write these out, and feel free to pause this video. Alright everybody, now that you've written these down, you can transfer them to your workshop outline, and then you can work with your chapter advisor to deliver your workshop to an ag class at your school. Then you will actually be able to put on your workshop between now and October 13th. Now when you do this, make sure that you are actually recording your workshop so you can come back and review it later. Now, I want you all to think about a time in FFA or in another organization that you participated in an activity or event that was competitive. Now, an example of in FFA would be when you're running for office, competing in a CDE, or even doing a proficiency. What did you do to improve at that activity? What did you do to be the best that you could be? Go ahead and take a few minutes to think about this and come back whenever you're done. This is where the workshop evaluation form comes in. This is where you can take a look at your recorded workshop and see what you do well and what you can work on before the COLT conference. You can do this to continually better yourself. Once you've recorded your workshop, evaluated it, you can then share it with me, Lainey, and Mr. Lejeune. I have put our emails on the PowerPoint, and feel free to email us with any questions that you have, but make sure that you email us with a copy of your evaluation rubric and a video of your workshop. As an area officer, you have a unique opportunity to impact local chapters through these COLT conferences. By learning the proper way to deliver a workshop, you will be more prepared and confident. Your audience will have a great opportunity to learn, and everyone will have a lot of fun. I wish you all the best of luck in planning these COLT conferences, and I'm excited to see how they do later on.